This is Kitten Features, and you're listening to Show X Live with Ken in his student accommodation all the way in Scotland, and Wade in his white windowless van? Uh-oh, I better get out of here. Enjoy the show!
Hello, everybody. Oh, that was way too loud. As everything went red in there. I was like, no.
Hello, everybody.
Right? Hello, everybody, and welcome to Show X on VTWProductions.com. You're listening live at 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. GMT on this, the 16th of December, 2018. Welcome to the show, everyone. But things looks like they are working and sorting and doing things as I'd hoped today, as I have little bits of new things and fun bits that I am playing with to see how it goes on the show today. And so far, so good. So, this is good. We are joined today as always, by our good friend Ken. How are you doing today, sir?
Hello, thank you for having me on the show, and thank you as always for putting effort into making the show a better experience for us and everybody else, of course.
Well,
it is much appreciated.
It is something that I think we've both had a part joining into as we had discussions on what we can do to make things better. And so, we keep trying and we keep doing, and we'll see what's going on with it. But let's see, as I do all of the things that I need to do now with the niece, as I will talk about in the Geek Cred section of things that are getting started today. But let's go ahead and kick things off with a little bit of... Oh, did it play or not? Darn it.
Oh, do you not have any way of knowing?
Well, no, normally it was working before for me, but it might have gone through... Let's see. Try it again. I'm seeing if it's bouncing where I expect it to or not.
Let's just find out in the chat.
Well, I didn't see anything come through. Oh, did that work? Let's see. Well, because last time I could hear it in these as well, and that's a challenge. And so I'm wondering if I might have clicked the wrong thing, and so that it's not coming through how we can hear it. It should, though, regardless. It should go straight through on this. If it does work, let's see. You guys tell me what you did or did not hear.
Copy says graveyard sign drop-ins. So dead drop-ins.
Rip drop-ins? Interesting.
They gone. They is dead.
Okay, so that's weird. I wonder why that's not working today. Well, I can still do it the old school way. Or maybe not. I might have taken those out too. Oh well. Shoot! I had it all set up and it was all happy and working, and now it's being less so. Let's see. But I have ways to work with that. Regardless, Ken, how are you doing this week? What have you been up to as we are in dysfunctional deviations? And I will try to figure out what's going on with this.
Sure. So yeah, I'm in pretty good mood. I've had quite a good week. So I've been working on my thesis. I've been really cracking into that. So I really had, a sort of template, and that's about it last week. I'm now at a stage where I've not just got a title, I've actually got most of my structure there now, I think. I've copied in a literature review from some past work that I've done into it so that it bulked up a bit. I've put in my papers that I've done already and published as appendices. So all that stuff together has bumped me up to about 30 pages or so, which is good. So that's about, 15% of the whole thing.
Okay.
I'm looking for 200 pages plus, really. So I'm getting there very, very, very slowly. But it's nice. It's nice to be able to scroll through it and see some text and stuff now. So it's quite nice. Anybody who follows me on Instagram will have seen the stupid post I put up where you'll see it. It's to do with my thesis that I thought was vaguely amusing. And you can see that on my Instagram. I think I'm _Ken Reed, which is an annoying name, but it's the one that I think Facebook gave me years ago.
Oh no.
So I've been working on that, and that's been good. Other than that, I have got some good news, but we'll get onto that in a second. First of all, it's 9 days till Christmas. Can you believe that?
Wait, already? Damn.
Yes, it's 9 days.
So it's funny because my younger brother and I were just talking about we need to consolidate efforts, and we need to, what was it? We need to actually get gifts together because we were going to do some things for nephews and nieces. It's like, have not ordered yet, thank goodness. Although relying a bit on, what was it? On, Amazon Prime and be able to get things in a couple days automatically gift wrapped and things like that. Because
yeah, you gotta hope that they're still doing okay by Christmas, because I've heard some stuff about the employees being quite unhappy and the likes at this time of year. So
okay, so the interesting thing, I probably shouldn't get into it too much but my cousin working for Amazon, I get to hear lots of kind of inside things. Now, granted, he's one of the team lead types, not just a regular everyday employee, and so I hear it more from the perspective of someone that's a little higher up and kind of talking about how people interact or deal with the holiday season and some of the other departments such, because yes, they get very busy, that is for sure, but at the same time, it's and the way he's described it before is one of those jobs where you actually have to work for a living, you have to pull your weight, do your part, but because Amazon tracks everything that their employees do, and they're able to keep track of how much product you've moved and how often you're doing things, stuff like that, because you're constantly having to tag the stuff you're working with, it's really easy for them to call out underperformers. And so one of the biggest challenges he's run into, where he's seen people bitching, has been really from people who don't put forth the actual effort for what they've been hired to do.
Right. Okay.
And so from my perspective, I get a little bit of question as to how much is it that Amazon is doing anything bad, or is a company that isn't being honest about what they're doing? And how much is it that there are people who are getting hired on for Amazon because they pay better than some places, but aren't necessarily used to having to work? And
sure, that makes sense.
A perspective I've heard from, those who have to manage the people that have to work, have to pull their weight kind of thing. And when they're looking at numbers and seeing people who aren't, it's like, well, what do you expect? And so, but yes, it is definitely busier around this time.
I heard some talks in the news of people talking about striking and stuff over the way that the manager, at least in the UK, the managers have been treating the employees. So
Gotcha.
that may be different in the US, but yeah,
I don't know.
What they're saying is we're not robots. Stop treating us like the robots.
Oh, ha. Well, my cousin works at a facility that, one, doesn't have any robots, but two, he's got a big team, and as far as I've heard, he does a really good job of crediting as due and trying to treat everyone very well. So it may be, any situation, if you have bad management, you're going to have trouble, right? And yes, as we talk about this and then Christmas season stuff, copies bringing up, they're like, hey, because it says, just be glad you're not Canadian, because the Canadian Post seems like it's always on strike. And has talked about how long it takes to get packages. And I think I've heard the stories from her basically saying that they're not expecting a lot of gifts to make it by Christmas, no matter kind of when you ordered it, even if you ordered it weeks ago, things like that, just because Canadian Post is not delivering, literally, which is so terrible. So yeah.
Oh man, I can't imagine what that must be like.
God, it's terrible. I cannot imagine. And so that, I agree. Thank goodness we are not Canadian Post, because that would suck. But
yeah, I don't know how we manage, because our ecosystem, our economy's ecosystem here in the UK, we really depend on Amazon working successfully, correctly, and on time. In fact, generally speaking, when Amazon says they're going to be late with something, people like tell their friends, we're like, oh my god, Amazon's going to be late with a package. It's weird. Yeah, they definitely. And they give you money and stuff for it. They're like, here, take some cash back. We're sorry that this happened.
Oh, interesting.
Something that you have to complain first, right? But still, that's sort of what was expected. It's mad that there's other countries. And I said before, my in-laws were saying how horrible it is in France and Geneva. That just a horrible work ethic for Amazon delivery drivers and such. And you might get your package delivered to the other side of your garden, or 3 days late, or to your neighbor instead who they didn't get a signature, or just a signature but you don't know whose signature it is. All this stuff. So you don't know where your package is. No. Yeah, it's just madness. I can't imagine all that. So that's 9 days to Christmas. It's kind of crazy. That means 15 days till I go to the US, until I go to Vegas. So that's cool as well.
So part of me is super excited for you with that, and another part of me is still disappointed because knowing that you will be so close and yet so far.
I know.
Still,
I know. I had some other friends actually who were similar, saying to me, "Oh, we'll be in the U.S. at the time as well. Actually, we should all." I was like, "Look, I can't. This is a romantic thing. We're going for like our wedding stuff."
Make it sound like
And
we can't all be romantic together, Ken.
You could be the one trying to convince Kitten Features of that one.
So honestly, it's so bad.
Ain't
But
gonna
I
do
think
it.
it was last time when I think it might have been just when you and I were chatting in general about things after the show or such, and Kitten Features came in. I honestly was sitting there like, "Damn it, I miss Kitten Features." Like,
I know. Well,
I
come visit. You're welcome to come visit.
and it is on my list of to-dos, minus the fact that I'm already going to be traveling a good portion of January, cutting into whatever travel budget I have for next year, which is like, So, but I have considered that a lot.
Hold on and see, because, somewhat touching on my next bit of news, I won't go into the details just yet. But there is a point of I need to work out what I'm doing after my PhD. Like, I don't know.
Colorado.
Well, that would be pretty sweet. I would like that very much. I mean, this realistic scenario is we want to stay in Scotland, specifically in this town of Stirling, for about another year, because we want Ken to have an appropriate amount of experience in her work before trying to get similar positions elsewhere, or more likely within the same company that she's in, but in a different branch type thing.
Okay.
So to do that, we need to just hold on. So I need to find the local jobs or stuff nearby-ish, and look into that. But I think we'd both be quite happy to go up to either Canada or maybe somewhere in the US. It really depends on the political climate more than anything. Because, in fact, before I was sort of like, I don't like the politics over there, but I'd still go there. But in the past week, just the anti-science crap that's been going on with the US government has just pissed me off to no end. I just can't believe all this stuff with the Paris climate. It's just the Paris Agreement. It's just insane.
The key.
It's just madness.
The key takeaway or understanding for anybody who is seeing what's going on is that our government here in the United States, in my opinion, has been very much influenced, is very much focused on doing things for the sole purpose of profit right now.
Yeah.
And that is based. What I want to say, that there are individuals who they are here to serve corporations, not people. And you can pick what level you want to assign that to, but that absolutely is something I've seen. Now the challenge is, regardless of those kind of issues, and this is a little bit of politics, but basic my consideration, my thoughts of life, is that for as many challenges as the United States specifically is having right now, with how diverse, or not diverse, but how divide, or how much of a division is what I want to say there is between main political ideologies and the ruling two parties essentially, and how much of a general, I will say, struggle it feels for a lot of different people with their hot topic issues. I will still profess that I believe the United States is one of the best countries I think a person could live in, with opportunities and things that are available for people to do what they will. There are definitely challenges, and there are things that may feel as though they're oppressive and such, but when you really get down to it and compare to how many other countries are, how they are regulating things, especially some of these very specific hot topic issues people have, then they should really look at, because in my experience, most of the time, the United States is still one of the most balanced and free countries out there. Not the most, and it depends on your issue, but across the board, from what I've seen, pretty damn good, especially for how big a nation it is. And I say this because I've had a lot of friends who've tried to make comments about the grass is greener type observations, and they choose very specific countries. And when they do, they choose very specific issues. And I pointed out to them that it's like, but especially for someone of your demographic, if you go there, have you not seen that, oh, by the way, this country will actually stone you to death because of your religion?
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't
it's all
notice
the Goldilocks
that.
effect, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's about the Goldilocks effect. You got to find the perfect zone Not just okay. If you think of it, when we're trying to find a new planet in the universe for humans to settle on, we're not just looking for heat. We also need to consider atmosphere, and we need to consider gravity, and we need to consider land mass and what type of land it is, and whether it's habitable land, and whether it's farmable land, and whether there's an ozone or there could be an ozone put into the place, etc. It's the exact same thing with this. It's a case of we need to make sure there's a country that has laws that meet your requirements, rights that meet your requirements, social rights, education expectations, safety, crime levels, all this stuff. I mean, no, there is no perfect country. However, I know fine well that, and if you live in a country, you're paying taxes. Taxes go to the government, and if your government is currently in the mood of I want to make money, guess what's happening to your taxes? It's going into that scheme.
I can discuss too, and I would believe this happens in more countries than people know.
Oh,
how
absolutely.
Government funding actually goes and how much money is being pushed to different directions. And I can definitely not speak about specifics, but I will say that it happens in ways that most people probably are not aware. And
Absolutely. I think I have experienced to the similar as well. But that I still think that, while I don't think that there's any perfect country out there, I just know that the U.S. isn't necessarily going to be perfect for us. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think I could ever support a country which is one of the few that are actually opposed to saving the planet through legal tribunal and legislation to save the planet ecologically. And that's the main point I'm getting at. That's really angered me this week.
So, and what Ken is speaking to essentially is that the U.S. government and essentially
Saudi Arabia
has sided with countries that have gone in, and there's been some discussions recently about the human impact to climate, essentially, right? Climate change, things like that, and things about that. And the U.S. came out, and I watched some videos on a few reports from it saying that basically towing the company line, if you will. What the current administration is pressing, that essentially I get the feeling that it is we shouldn't regulate anything. Let corporations do whatever the heck they want as long as it makes money. And essentially, even though we've had multiple now scientific reports that have come out from this current administration that say that we are having a significant impact on the environment, and that if humans don't change their ways in the next 10 years or so, we may do some damage that cannot be fixed from. That our current administration here in the United States is of the feeling that they don't want to pay attention to this report or any of these reports. They have a higher agenda, which is to make money for corporations. And so they're doing everything they can to downplay the significance of the reports and to basically say they don't care, that they would rather rape the planet than do anything responsible, because the people who are putting money in their pocket are those with short-sightedness who only care about making money in the now and don't care the effects of what that'll do for the future of humanity, essentially. And I am not some left-wing liberal nut in the sense that, oh my God, climate change, this and that. I do believe that, we don't have to go stop using coal today instantly and stuff like that and all these things. But I do believe we should be pressing, as all nations, towards things that are renewable, things, energy sources and stuff that don't tear apart the earth in the process of creating them. That just seems responsible in general. And whenever people try to tell me that there's any reason we shouldn't be investing in those things, that tells me that they are politically or monetarily motivated versus, because it's greater good for all humanity. And it's talking about not being so selfish as to think that our generations are the only ones that matter, and, who cares what the future looks like. And so that's part where to me, it makes no sense that anybody would just outright ignore any of these reports. It'd be one thing if the administration said, we've looked into it, we see the concern, and so we are going to make plans towards how we're going to eventually move our country as a whole to a more, renewable or more sustainable model. But to just outright say, nah, I don't believe it, is not quite criminal in the way so many other things are going on right now in this country. But
it's not criminal.
But it's
probably one of the most immoral things you can do.
Yeah, it is hideous.
it's a intentionally indirect genocide of all of mankind and future mankind and a lot of life on Earth. Admittedly, life will go on, right? I really don't think we're destroying the planet. I think I actually hate the slogan about destroying the planet, save the planet, all this stuff. Planet's going to be fine, right? It's okay. Life is going to be fine. Life will go on. Human existence is the thing that's key here. That's kind of what we care about. And that's what's going to go extinct, right? Realistically, that's the thing that's going to die off. Yeah, we'll probably take a lot of stuff with us. I imagine the bees will go. I imagine germs are going to do really well in the process. I imagine antibiotic-resistant germs in particular. But we're doing a lot of stuff that's just destroying humanity right now. And in particular, my politics are, you know what, I'm happy to talk about lots of things, including social politics, fiscal, economic, and industry-based stuff. I find it all very interesting and important and needs to be discussed, and I do not think it's unimportant. However, when I look at any voting form and I'm considering who to vote for, I always lean towards the one that's going to save the future of humanity, be it through research or through ecological disaster aversion. That's always where I vote, and I think I encourage everybody else to do the same. Honestly, social politics, industry, everything else is important, but nowhere near as important as the continuation of humanity, quite simply. And that's the way I see it. So, you know, we can talk about everything as much as we can. Try and find the perfect candidate. If you can find one that does all that stuff and other great stuff, go for it. But for me, there's so few candidates that even care enough about saving our ecosystem that I tend to only vote for the most down that route, and that's that. That's all we can
honestly,
find.
I mean, what I tell people all the time when it comes to voting is pick your important issues, and I will respect anybody who votes along the lines of candidates who support the things they take important. I totally support that ideology. I just request that people look at most of what the candidate's trying to represent and understand when they maybe are also not representing something they probably should or that you do care about, or if they're actually opposing something you do care about, at which point you need to weigh your benefits, right? Which thing's most important to you? Because I accept that everybody has their own values and their own things they find important. Totally accept. And I cannot expect to force a person to have my priorities, right? I keep blasting the world, and I'll talk about some of the news today some more about net neutrality and what the U.S. is doing with that. And yet I have a lot of people who don't care or truly believe that it is okay for us to just let companies kind of make decisions for us as people versus understanding that, and this is my one thing I will harp on, that there isn't a corporation, a company out there, especially I will heavily say any that are traded publicly that have stockholders, who aren't there specifically to make money, and that their decisions are not based upon the best outcome for humanity, for people, for things like that, for nature, whatever those kind of cases are. There are some companies who, when they make decisions, they realize that they also line up with things that are good for humanity. Usually, though, that is because it creates a higher level of popularity for them. More people are willing to buy their product and things like that. Because all of it comes back to money. But my lesson being, make sure you understand, don't for a second think that these companies are doing it for your good. They're doing it for their good. It may also benefit people, but they're doing it for their good. So I say that don't ever give up your influence in the way laws are written and enforced to companies, because they will do everything they can to make it so they never have to work hard again. That all they do is get money. That's what they're there to do. So just don't give it up. I've heard, and I say it because I've heard people say, oh, but this company's good, so I trust them, so they're going to do what's best for people. And I will argue against that every moment of my life. Like, you're full of crap. There isn't a company that
Even
will.
if the CEO is all for that, in the end, it doesn't matter because
CEOs
the rest of the corporation, the board of directors, and the people who own the shares are going to turn around and say, yeah, but we're going to overrule that because it makes no money. We're more interested in making money.
We care about money.
So that's why we need to have government legislation in place that encourages or incentivizes even more world-safe, ecologically safe decisions to be made that are monetarily valuable. For example, if you start using packaging that's not plastic-based or can be easily degradable, then you should be incentivized to do so. Either by the carrot or the stick. Where the stick could be, we charge you, the government taxes you extra for using plastic, or we give you money if you use cardboard. Right? Those two things are fine with me. I don't care which one, so long as it works. I don't give a crap. I'll happily pay more tax to save the world, and I'll happily have them tax to save the world. I don't care. In the end, it's about just, and again, I hate using that phrase, save the world, right? In the end, it's to save our environment. Our environment. That's the thing. This isn't a liberal thing. This isn't a conservative thing. This is a scientific goddamn thing. I don't give a crap about the politics behind it. It's about just making sure that we have some air to breathe. No matter how rich you are, everybody should have air to breathe. We should have food to eat that's on our plates that's not full of poison and disgusting and full of chemicals that have been sprayed over fields that have been known to be terrible for us and such. We should be able to live in cities that have not been forced underwater from rising ocean levels. We should be able to eat seafood that's not full of plastic. Have you seen the reports on that?
Oh,
in the
how
past
much?
2 weeks?
What, the oceans of plastic? All the
They did some
islands that
in
are
the
out
UK.
there?
Yeah, they did some testing in the UK, and they have a specific test for checking the content of microplastics inside of fish.
Oh, okay.
And they look at different parts of fish, the different organs, and within those the organelles, and basically they have a general percentage of what percentage of these things in total. Like, imagine it was a grid. In this grid, how many grid squares have plastic in them? And over something like 5,000 fish, it came back to 100%. There wasn't a single piece of the fish that was not contaminated with microplastics. And that's from a whole bunch of stuff. But when plastic starts to break down, it can become a microplastic. But it's also from stuff like when you use face wash with those little beads in them. That's a microplastic. That doesn't just disappear in when it goes down your sink. That actually is a plastic that's get eaten by fish. And the thing that's really bad about this, like, in the end, who gives a crap about a fish? I understand. Like, it doesn't really affect you. But it does when you eat the fish. You will basically be eating that crappy soap, right? That's not good for you. So let's do something about that. Let's ban that stuff, or let's replace it with something better. Glitter is another one. How much glitter have you seen in your life, right? How much glitter have you spilled, hoovered, put into landfills? It's horrific. It's so bad for the environment. It's just all plastic. There are glitter alternatives out there which are made of paper and stuff. Use those, please. Please use those. Straws. One of the things that we've been getting into recently is toothbrushes. Get bamboo toothbrushes.
Oh, okay.
Actually feel nice as well, and they last longer. Like, it is negligible difference in price. It's just harder to find them is all. Take 2 minutes out of your day and do something for the environment. Go buy a bamboo toothbrush, please.
See,
and vote for somebody who gives a crap.
Well, so yeah, for the toothbrushes, I use the electric ones with the heads, and thankfully I don't change those often. But that's a piece. But no, I hear you. But like you said, I respect anybody who presses the issues that they care about and be true to them by all means. And so, excuse me, but yes, that is absolutely something that I suggest. Hey, I am just at a point where I can, consume alcohol again without feeling bad, as I've proven yesterday. Finally,
did it take a whole week, the hangover?
Not a hangover so much, but definitely a weakness to it. And it was weird because it was really just after the show. I did not do anything last week. I suffered. I sat and suffered, but did not do anything because
understandable. That was
pain. But that's okay. It's okay. I survived. I am back. I am living. All right. So we will. Well, I won't say we'll completely get off the political horse here because there will be more later to talk about.
As always. But I do have one more thing I'd like to raise before we finish talking.
Please,
Sorry,
please do.
I didn't mean to go on such a tangent about.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine, sir. Continue on.
I have gotten some good news this past week. So my new-ish second supervisor. So the way it works with a PhD is you have your main supervisor that how it normally works is you meet with your main supervisor every week or every 2 weeks. And then you meet with your second supervisor a couple times a year, and then they give you like an overall sort of view. So your main supervisor is going to be somebody who's like, a couple levels higher than you, maybe a postdoc or a lecturer. And then your second supervisor should be somebody who's quite big in the field, like a professor or has a lot of good research out in the field. I've got the kind of inverse, but that's a different point altogether. But basically, my second supervisor actually meets with me every week and is a fantastic dude who's really, really helpful. And he completely, without me asking, without me begging or anything, just out of the goodness of his heart, he applied for a grant within the university, just
Oh,
a small little grant, which was enough. It's a proof of concept type grant. So before you apply for a big, like multi-million pound grant for research, you need to have some kind of proof. You don't just say, "I've got this cool idea, please fund me." You must say, "I have this idea, and I proved it with these other smaller projects that is kind of viable. Now we've got proof to continue on to the
yeah.
bigger project."
Here's the science that lets you know that there is a better chance for success in what I'm trying to sell you or tell you.
Exactly. And this is one of the smaller ones, right? So he successfully got a grant in one of these smaller projects for like, I think it's like 8,000, 10,000 pound or something. And he put me down as the recipient on the grant. Or he's going to, I should say. He's promised he's going to.
Okay.
And that's approximately 2 months' pay. And I remember that's not all straight to me. The vast majority of that is uni tax, right? So the uni will take a big tax out of that. So please don't think that I'm getting paid $5,000 a month. I really wish I was.
Oh,
I can
yeah.
assure you, it's well less than a third of that. I'm still a student. So I'm effectively going to be paid full time for 2 months to join this project and produce some research to prove some stuff. I'm not going to go into the details of it because it's not all official yet, and I've not signed my in blood yet,
Yes.
So
Let
I don't
alone
want to
any potential NDAs or anything else you might have to and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean,
totally
this is all going
understand.
to be open. It's
Oh,
open,
okay.
it's public money and stuff.
Because it's college based or university stuff, right?
Not always. I mean, you can have private stuff. I mean, my main research is mostly private. Literally, is owned by a corporation. However, this stuff is going to be public based. So we'll talk about that once it exists. It just doesn't exist right now. We have the money, but the project doesn't exist. We haven't even decided what we're going to do. So I can talk about ideas, but even then. So this is going to probably be in February, March sort of time.
Okay.
This is not definitive. Like I said, it really depends. But what the likelihood is I'll take a 2-month break from my PhD, go work on this for 2 months, and then I'll also extend my PhD by 2 months because of this, which is really nice. It means that I can not worry. Hey, thank you very much, St. Uther.
Yes, exactly.
That's very kind. He's now hosting us as well. I just saw that on the stream. And that means that I'm getting a little bit of more spare time to do my PhD. Realistically speaking, I'm supposed to do 9 to 5 of this job, and I will be doing that. But at nighttime, I can do as I please. And if I happen to work on my thesis, I don't think that's a problem. So it gives me a bit more time to do that. And it also means I've got funding for a bit longer. So I don't have before I was sort of looking at May time frame for, I'll be unemployed by that point. What am I going to do? Now it's looking more like August. So we'll see. So that's good news. I'm very happy about that.
No, that's huge. Hey, anything that helps secure your future, dude, that's a big deal. Yeah. And I absolutely agree and understand. So that's great to hear.
Plus, it's a neat thing to have on my CV that I actually got employed doing research. It kind of implies that I'm somebody that people like and want to employ, right? So just like in any field, if you do an internship before you get the proper job, it has a good implication.
Yeah, no, that's a big deal. I like it.
So that's everything on my end. Thank you for indulging me for so long, everybody.
It's not a problem. So thank you. I wanted to say also thanks to St. Uther for the hosting us on the channel. It helps us grow, and we very much appreciate that. So thank you very much for that. And it's nice because it looked like all my little things worked where it popped up and let us know.
Yeah, I saw that. It was cool.
So that is a plus. And I was trying to do a thing here real time. Thankfully, I didn't break anything, but I haven't figured it out yet, so I'll have to work on that too. I was trying to do the audio thing so I could get this darn thing to work. So I realized what happened is I was trying to use one of the features that Windows 10 has in it now. That is so potentially cool. And, of course, a complete mess because it's kind of the first time they've done it. But in Windows 10, they now have an opportunity where you can open up your sounds menu. And in doing so, you can discreetly tell each application, essentially, that's running, which audio device to export to. So how to route its audio output. Super cool. The challenge, though, is that it doesn't apparently save those settings. And so what I had done is to use this new tool that I'm using to run the show on. It has an opportunity to output things directly as audio. And I had told the output to send it through the virtual cables that we use through Voice Meter Potato now, our Potato version, which has actually been running really well. I like this new beta that came out. but to run it through Potato and have it route so everyone can hear everything appropriately. And when I first installed, got it all running, it worked great because it came up in the Windows 10 sound menu under the. And if you ever want to check it out yourself, you go down to the sound. If you right click on your little speaker, it's the open sound settings, and that brings up kind of the Windows menu in there, which normally just lets you choose what's your main sound setting and what do you want as your microphone, that kind of thing. But at the bottom, they have this other sound options, app volume and device preferences. And that one, when it loads out, it actually has this list of basically all your programs that are running, and it lets you tell each program what do you want the input or output to be for that program, which is really cool because it allows me to then go in there and choose from my list of various items I can use for routing, and like be it my headphones, my speakers, my Oculus, things like that. Per program, I can tell it, go to here with your audio, go to here. And that just makes total sense, right? That's a cool feature. Unfortunately, it seems like, and I started looking this up, things don't maintain. And so now the actual software that I was using for this device doesn't even show up in the list. And I don't know what to do to get it back. So I am looking at some other options. In fact, I just got a hold of a piece of software that I should be able to manually do the same thing, but more discreetly. We'll see. But darn it, Microsoft, why you tease me like that? Give me a...
You can make a script which sets up that for you, and you can identify which programs
yes
will
and
do what in
no.
a script.
The problem is, some programs like this one, it doesn't give you an option within the program to choose its audio output, like either what device it goes to or something like that. So it defaults to your system default. And so the problem is, to keep the stream clean, I make sure that the system audio goes to my regular speaker system headphones, while everything show related comes through the mixer board. So
of course.
all
so
we
no
can
random
hear,
videos play or whatever.
yeah, so we don't hear chimes from something or other or this or that. It makes it so that we can all just absolutely hear it. So yes, if I play a video so that people can watch it, I don't have to mute it. It just plays, and you don't hear that. It's always that I'm trying to make the show work in a consistent way that is, I think, a little more professional. That's kind of my goal, my hope, and things like that, that we get out for everyone. And that's part of the challenge where right now, because of that little change, I thought I had figured it out, but now it's showing me that maybe I haven't. That, what I thought was all set up, that Microsoft doesn't have locked down well enough, so I can't rely on them for that functionality in the show.
Trusting Microsoft, that was your problem.
Well, and people have had this issue lately with Windows 10 updates and things like that Microsoft's been having a few rough patches. Thankfully, not enough to make anybody truly run away and it's all over, but they've definitely had some little challenges recently, and this is one of them. And so I'm just a little bit like, grr. But for the most part, it's okay.
I actually had a major problem with my laptop for the past month and a half, and I couldn't work out who it was, and I actually stumbled across just a random Stack Overflow comment, not even an answer, where somebody said, "Oh, I changed my main program files drive from the C drive to my secondary hard drive, and that caused a lot of Windows Updates issues." So I was like, I did that too. I changed it back to just C, and suddenly all my Windows updates worked fine, and then it fixed all the problems I was having across my computer.
So it's interesting because, one of the main issues people have had with losing files and stuff recently on Windows has been due to their update program, which is supposed to be a fairly solid, decent upgrade. The auto update and how that's supposed to work. Unfortunately, it seems like they've had some challenges with it recently, in such a way that it's not, that the updates aren't quite working how they're supposed to work, that they've broken a few things, stuff like that, and so things. What? Kuro, how can it be you don't know? If you want to email into the show's email is showx@vtwproductions.com.
You just say doesn't know our email address.
I was going to say...
Everybody not know our email address.
So the funny part, because every time we take a break... And every time we do a music break, I make sure to play that at the top of the thing, hopefully, so that people will email us in during the break. It's the whole point of what I do that. So I always mention it. But not to call you out in that bad way, Kuro, but it actually gives me hope that an email is incoming.
I'm calling you out. What are you doing, Kuro?
Because we do have one
You've
coming.
emailed us before. You have it in your history.
Okay, there might be some slight calling out that's happening right now. But anyhow.
Maybe a little bit.
Okay, he says he found it, but that better also mean that an email is incoming. Because we do love to hear from everybody about your geek cred and things you've been up to, or what things you want us to talk about. all the time. All right, but speaking of some of the dysfunctional deviations things, and less about what I've done to try to not break the show for a change, what have I been doing? So the big thing I want to throw out to everybody, because I have excitement, is go see the new Spider-Man animated Spider-Verse movie, like now, after or as soon as the show's over.
Kitten just saw this, actually.
Go see this. What? Kitten saw it?
Yeah, she saw it a few days ago, and she absolutely loved it.
Without you?
Oh, she went with a friend, and they already had it planned. I didn't want to jump it.
Dude. It is... So okay. Making sure enthusiasm does not allow for spoilers. I will say that, you've seen the animation a little bit, or clips of it, but I will tell you that does not do justice. It is gorgeous. And in fact, when I watched through the credits, which you better watch through the credits, I saw the last, one of the last icons that comes up in the credits, and that was of it saying that it was optimized for IMAX, which made me say, wow, I need to go look to see if there's an IMAX showing somewhere around me, because
wow, that good.
I'd go see it again in IMAX. It was so good and so gorgeous that
nice.
Yes, and I'm trying to think of what can I say without, spoiling, without saying too much, things like that. But it was one of the most solid comic book based storylines I've seen. I will admit that while I follow some amazing and spectacular and Web of Spider-Man, I really have not followed much of the extended Spider-Verse, but I have been aware of it and seen some of the other characters. And from what I could tell, they did a great job of keeping to the origin of all of the various Spider-Men. That, this one focuses on Miles Morales, which, again, depends on what you follow, if you know the characters or not. But it's one that it definitely comes together in that I think they do a decent job of showcasing each of the, Spider-Verse characters that are involved in it. I have not followed Miles' specific timeline, so I don't know how the variations are there, but essentially the storyline goes into something with split dimensions, and causing it all to come together. So these are not all Spider characters that would normally exist in the same world. So for people not to break their brains over canon type things, and essentially that's the case, that each of these does say that it's another dimension where a different reality is happening. And I really appreciate what they did with that and kind of how they tied them together. I loved, and I need to go see the Morales version Spider-Man storyline more to know how his villains and characters are portrayed, since it primarily takes place in his world. And in that, because they have your classic villains from Spider-Man, enough of them to make I think most people happy, that some of the ways they're portrayed are a bit over the top, but at the same time absolutely fit those characters. And so I thought the takes on them was really neat. I really appreciate it. Like, the voice acting's solid, good. The animation's beautiful. The scenery, the way the world looks and everything like that are just phenomenal. This one was put out by Columbia Pictures as a main piece, but it is an offshoot from Sony because of the whole Spider-Man IP. I'm actually very curious if this animated version renews their ownership or keeps some of the ties or whatever they're supposed to have to maintain the Spider-Man movie contracts that they have with Marvel.
That's always quite interesting, that stuff.
But I will say, along with that, this is, for me, has been one of the best superhero movies that I have seen, to include all of the both live action and animated, especially Marvel movies, even compared to many of the DC animated that I've seen. I was so ecstatic with the experience. Just lean forward in chair, grin on face, openly laughing at scenes, big smile on my face. And it was funny because I went to like a noon showing on Friday, and there might have been 6 of us in the theater. And the guy that was kind of right behind me to the side was equally guffawing at parts, just like both of us were sharing in the level of like how excited we were for what we were watching.
That's sweet.
And so I will gush consistently on it. I will likely try to go see it again. I was super happy. And I don't know. I'm sure some people will have some reason to feel like they disliked something that was portrayed or how it was done. I have none of those concerns. I really loved all of it. And
So in the chat we have XX Depale XX.
Yep.
I'm happy Spider-Verse didn't stick to the basic superhero mold, and it is very different from most other ones. That's from what I've been told. It has a different feel entirely.
Yeah, no, it's so well done. Like I said, I love the heroes in it, the way they're portrayed, and there's some reality that's in there as well. That's so good. Oh, hey, thank you, Happy Dude, for also hosting us now. That's awesome.
Hey,
I really appreciate it, guys. And so it's just it's been so good. So yeah, I'm throwing it out there. Please go see it. I don't know how long I can wait before wanting to have more in-depth conversation about it. In fact, probably my biggest challenge is because I didn't go with anyone to see this one, is I haven't had anyone to talk about with it because no one else I know has seen it.
Oh, no.
Like, none of my local friend group or anyone has actually seen it, so I'm just sitting here like, oh, it's so good and I can't talk about it. So yeah, there's that.
So you just need to find the IMAX showing, then convince a friend to go with you to see that.
And I may it'll be interesting because today, even though I've heard a little more mixed on it, I plan to go see Mortal Engines, which is kind of the big steampunk cities fighting each other things. My cousin and I have tickets to go see that.
Oh, yeah. Hando's really excited with that, actually.
Well, and I've had, what was it? I do know a couple people who've seen it, and they're, actually the Wasics went and saw it. They're really big into steampunk, things like that, because they're feeling like it had some of those undertones to it, even though it's not truly steampunk. It's got kind of that whole where the technology is bigger and different than what we currently know today. So it kind of fits that same level of sci-fi. And yeah,
Sure.
Hando in the same way. I've heard some that it's made, but I've heard it's entertaining and that visually it's pretty stunning. And so that will probably make it worth the theater experience regardless. So I'm happy to go see it. Oh, that's the other thing to say about the Spider-Verse one is I saw it not knowingly in 3D because I wasn't specifically looking to grab it in 3D, but it came off beautifully. And it never felt like it was cheesy 3D. It's an animated one, so they're able to do 3D very easily, right? They just have to say, make this one 3D, and it'll be able to render it out in stereoscopic. And so it looked clean. It looked really beautiful, and I very quickly forgot that it was in 3D, but it just looked great. But yeah, so we'll see. I'll go see that today as well. Okay, other than that, for my dysfunctional today, what else do I have? I finished thy last book, I think I had said, in the Warcraft series, the one about dragons and such.
Oh, yes.
And have started and made some progress on the next book, as I am now down to the last probably fifth of it or so. I think these are fairly easy reads. But I'm currently reading Warcraft, Lord of the Clans. And so this is essentially Thrall's story from Warcraft, talking about, and these are all lore that most people should know fairly well, but talking about less about his parents and more about his experience growing up as a slave initially before finding his freedom to then turn around and become part of the orc race and continue on to, do all the things that we know of in the Warcraft story. And so I'm really enjoying it. It's another one of these foundational ones that's kind of setting up, I'd say, a lot of the background and a little more detail in the stories that many people, anyone who's been involved with World of Warcraft should already know to some degree. And so
or just Warcraft in general. Warcraft 3 is very...
any of the Warcraft series. The overall lore that is Warcraft.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually really enjoying it. I like it a lot. It's not, I would say, the most phenomenal writing I've ever read, but the story itself is carrying it in a way that I'm just enjoying it as a whole. And it's a nice light read as I go through it. So I wanted to mention that one because I'm sure others know better than I. But also, speaking books, I just got back yesterday. The Wasics, or John Wasick, had his official launch book signing party for his new series, for the remastered book series. For the author of this one, Hando, since you're asking, is Christine Golden, is the author of this book that I'm currently reading. But they had a signing where they had actually gotten a bunch of swag where they got bookmarks made up for each of the new covers for each of the three books he has, and dressed those up a bit and had people over so he could sign them and such. And I challenged him myself because I'm a dork, where when he signed mine, I was like, no, I don't want you to just sign it. He's like, oh yeah, what do you mean? He's like, I want you to sign it the most garish, like over the top, big signature you possibly can that almost takes up the whole page. And he looked at me like, what? I was like, but I don't, what? I was just like, yeah, I want people to see that it's been signed. I want it to be ridiculous. He's like, well, I personalize. I was like, okay, so personalize it and then make your signature just massive. I want your John Hancock all over it. And so it took him some practice. And by, I think, the third one, because the first one he did a little small, I was like, you can do better than that. And he's like, I was like, no, use a Sharpie. Don't use a regular pen. Come on, make that bold. And so he eventually got into it and kind of chuckled about it. And then it's funny because other people there afterwards, because I was like the last to show, other people were like looking at me like, well, I want a bigger signature in mine now. I was like, that's right. I'm a trend setter.
You started a trend. Yeah.
So I'm a dork.
Very nice.
It's definitely me. So anyhow, those are the main things I have been doing that haven't been geeky this week. I think we can start talking about a little bit of geek as we transition over. In fact, we have, I believe, a couple emails in, and so I will say that if you will take the first one, I think they're from Happy Dude, Ken, I will take the one from Kuro, since his, I think, also includes a picture that I may need to share. I can touch one of the buttons, and that'll work. So.
You haven't talked about the hardware that
no,
much.
because it's not Geek Cred yet. It's not Geek Cred yet.
Okay. Fine. Okay, so yeah, this email is indeed from Happy Dude. Give me one moment here. Okay. Upon looking on Twitter one day, I found fighting game commentator James Chen talking about the classic Tetris World Championship. Curiosity got the best of me, and I looked up the rules for the qualification process, level 9 or higher. So I started to bunker down and booted up the NES Classic and started playing when the internet goes down around 11 PM last night, just to see what I can do. 110 lines starting at level 10 isn't bad. However, right below the qualification information, I see this about the top 32 that Sunday. The highest seeded player in each match will choose the starting level of 15 or 18 for game 1. The lower seed will choose for game 2, and, if necessary, the higher seed will choose for game 3. Starting level during rounds 2 to 5 will always be level 18. So I booted up and started to practice on level 18 and found out that, like Smash, I cannot play anything above level 11 due to hand cramping and slow reaction time.
Ooh,
if you are over the age of 30, don't even try. I don't think that's fair. I'm sure there's a lot of... I bet some of the best Tetris players are actually of an older age because they'll have more experience and played it when they were younger, right? I imagine that's quite common.
I'd be curious because I don't know how that's changed over the year, if that makes any sense. Like...
Yeah.
What is the current, or I don't know.
I don't know.
Like I don't know what. So wait, does it say in there? This is what classic NES Tetris?
Yep.
Okay, because for me, Tetris that I always played was my Game Boy. My original Game Boy is really the only Tetris I ever spent any time on. And so, gosh. That I wouldn't even... I have tried to play the Nintendo Tetris, and it's just awkward to me. I'm so used to just the little, like, piece of it that's in my hands and easy to do. And I definitely do better on that than I ever do on the NES Tetris. I would fail, but regular, like, the Game Boy Tetris, I was good. I would say, like, I could easily, like, start a game and get over 200 lines and stuff like that.
I played as a kid, but I never really got into Tetris that much. It was just sort of like, oh yeah, okay, that exists. And that was better for me. And I still don't quite see the appeal.
Really? Oh, it's such a good real-time puzzle game. And to one of the most classic styles, essentially.
I respect it for what it is, but I just don't particularly enjoy it, right? I mean,
okay, that's fair. No, that is fair. That is fair. And it's hard because for me, it has more than a soft spot in my heart for it, just because I do really love it. Like, to me it was so good. But so I can understand. Yeah, I can understand where everyone's like, not my thing. That's cool. It just so interesting.
So he goes on to say, just passing along that the classic Tetris World Championships is a thing, and quite possibly the most casual thing I can recall being turned into an esport. Question mark. I think he's like saying, does that count? I don't know. Is it?
Huh.
I don't know if it counts. I suppose the Tetris championships have always kind of been a thing, right? It's kind of just like chess, right? There's always been championships for games and video
I
games.
suppose, yeah. Well, I mean, for all kinds of things.
We like to compete.
I guess if I didn't know, I wouldn't be able to say. But yes.
Yeah, indeed. And then he says, payout is to top two, $1,000 for first and $500 for second. That's not quite as amazing as I was expecting, I have to say. I was kind of expecting it to be like, whoa, $100,000 for the winner or something. I don't know. But $1,000, that's not even worth your time. Like you can like flying out there and getting involved would cost more than anything else. That doesn't appeal to me.
Huh.
And that's everything from him. And he says, "Take care, dudes. Happy dude / cup check."
Yay! Thank you very much
thank
for
you
that.
for your
We
email,
appreciate it very much. So, oh my gosh, I am not going to be able to use this thing. I should
trying to
show
work out to do it.
Well, so I've got an audio device or program that I got hold of that is supposed to allow me to manually like tell things where to output, essentially do the same role but kind of dedicated for it. And the challenge is the UI for it is what do I want to say? Well, I don't think it was prepared for the number of audio devices I have running. And virtual audio cable stuff. So it stretches out as it goes, and actually I can show this briefly on the screen. This will be my first example of it. And so for people watching, I'm going to go to my main screen and show part of it. I'll make it go through here. But maybe it'll work. What are you doing? Is the button not working? It worked earlier. Anyways. Oh, it's doing the thing. It's not going to actually show it because it's freaking out. But what it is it's just a wide bar of all the different devices. And I have my 4K monitor right up as well as my side monitor with it. And I have stretched it across both monitors. So essentially the real estate of 3 monitors and can't get to the end of it. Of all the devices that are listed. And so I will have to play with like how this is configured to figure out how to ever use this thing. I don't know. It's entertaining to me though. Just I see it, I'm like, huh. Now what? Anyhow, so that's a thing. That's funny, but we'll play with that. Well, shoot. Now I don't know if I'll be able to do what I'd meant to do with the sharing of screens because I'm pretty sure I have something open that is keeping OBS from grabbing the stream that I want to see. So.
Oh,
I think I know what it is, but we will figure this out at another time. Let's see, because I don't think it's going to kick on for me. Nah.
So we actually got another email coming as well.
Oh, well, I will read the one that comes in here from Kuro, as he has joined us and says, "Hey guys," or says, "Can't believe I forgot the show email." Real-time response. Just wanted to share some geek cred. The coolest bit of tech in my house continues to be the NVIDIA Shield TV. I recently connected a wireless keyboard and mouse, and something magical happened. I was sitting there playing City Skylines with no gaming PC on my living room TV. GeForce now lets you play your Steam games live on NVIDIA servers with no noticeable lag at all, and it's currently free. Not sure that many people have heard of this magic, but it's so amazing I had to share it all with you, and he has a picture to prove, but unfortunately that's the part that I'm not able to show right now.
That's cool.
Well, so it's interesting because what I've done, and it sucks because Steam basically has discontinued it, but I have had some success, although it's kind of mixed, in streaming, basically my PC desktop to my living room TV. It's been acting funny lately, and so I haven't had it for a while. But I was successfully playing some of, Tales of Zestiria, doing it that way, which is pretty slick. And I know there's some other options of that. And I've seen, because when you first got the NVIDIA Shield, I remember when Kuro first was showing it off to us, I brought it over to the house and had it, how did he do it? He had it kind of set up with I think your mini projection screen is what you were doing. And in doing so, it's just really cool because it allowed him to share that, like, just with kind of show everybody how it was running and doing stuff like that, which is pretty cool. But I like anything that allows you to seamlessly move something from your high-end system or from another thing to play it. Because what's another one I've been listening to recently or something? I've heard some other streaming services that people are trying to get going that are kind of
I actually tried the Steam Link. I've got it installed downstairs. And,
okay, yeah.
I played with it a little bit, but the problem is even streaming across Wi-Fi, like just a bog standard Wi-Fi, nothing special, it was a little bit laggy, even playing things that were okay for my laptop to actually handle. Okay. So I had the laptop next to me, but it was connected via Wi-Fi to the Steam Link, which was connected by HDMI to my 4K TV, and it just struggled. I think it's partly because my laptop wasn't used to streaming to a 4K resolution, so that was probably a little bit harder on my 1050 Ti, as well as the fact that I don't think the Wi-Fi was quite fast enough. But it looked okay, and I think it'd be okay in games that you don't care so much about a little bit of lag. Like if you're playing Civ or Stellaris, I guess that'll be okay. But if you're playing COD, I think you'd probably hate it.
Well, yeah, you don't want anything Twitch-based, I think, and that's kind of true of any of the streaming solutions I've seen. But you definitely want. Also, since we're the emails and I see it, I want to make sure I throw a shout out to Crimson Shadow for following us on Twitch now. Appreciate that. So,
hey.
As we continue to grow listener base, I really appreciate that. So yeah, thank you for that. So no, that's really cool to figure out how to play other ones and to move things. Because one of my biggest challenges is getting the interfaces to work properly, like mouse, keyboard, or more so this damn Steam controller. I could never get that thing to work properly.
Can I button with a random story, by the way?
Yes.
I know this is the middle of nowhere. This really deserves to be dysfunctional deviations more, I think. I was in I don't know what you call it, like a group meeting mini celebration type thing. It was us and it was the teachers and a bunch of students and some other staff and stuff. And we were sort of being encouraged to mingle, so I was going around talking to people I didn't know and stuff, saying hi. And I was talking to this one student, and he said he was an American guy. And he was talking to me, and he was quite eloquent, and he was saying a lot of computing phrases. I had a feeling he was trying to, intentionally try to use words that were a bit more, I don't know.
Big words?
Yeah, some jargon words. He was just trying to impress. And I was like, hey, that's fine. He's trying to show off to a staff member. It's useful for whatever reason, right? You never know if that might be usful in your future career or whatever. So I kind of get it. It makes sense. Yeah. And I was enjoying what he was talking about. It was actually quite interesting. So we were having a good time. And then his friend came over and to say bye to him, a fellow student. And he goes, oh, all right, boss. Yeah, see you later, man. See you later. And they do this crazy handshake thing. And it just totally, but his voice went from this, like,
serious kind
if
of.
we use the return penalty algorithm, there's this, yeah, man, see you later, yeah, whoa, see you, dude. And it was just this total, like, even tonality, word choice, everything. I was like, whoa, how do you have that part of your brain that can switch to, like, friendly chat to professional etiquette so quickly? I was blown away by it and impressed by the fact that he managed to do that so quickly. It was awesome.
Well, that's cool. Well, so I think it's probably one of those things that actors and stuff do in general. When you get in character, or when you're talking about a certain subject or things like that, you can notice the change. That it's not really conscious. It's just kind of what goes with that whole experience. But it's funny to hear that you got to like witness that directly in front of you, where it went from, it was
weird.
Well, well-spoken and intelligent conversation to like, bro, what up?
Yeah, dog, see you later. I was like, wow.
That's
How
funny.
did you do that?
That's good. All right, it is time for us to take a break. We will come back with some more Geek Cred, because I have several other things to discuss as well, and to get into yours, Ken, further. And so we'll get back with that, but we're going to take a break. And because it's the holiday season, even though, admittedly, I have yet to feel festive this season, I am going to play some of our ready-to-go 8-bit Christmas music that we have that should be all legal and comfortable for us to play. So we'll do that during the break, and we'll be back just after this. But you're listening to Show X on VTWProductions.com. Please feel free to send in your emails so we can discuss what you've been up to as well, as we'd love hearing your geek cred. And we will be back right after this.
Send in your emails to showx at VTWProductions.com. listening to Show X on btwproductions.com.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the show. Alrighty. Now, that's hopefully you enjoyed, although Ken and I were both concerned with that second song, how it started. It was a little rough, so we weren't sure if we were going to keep to it. Thankfully, it worked out towards the end there. Alrighty, so we are continuing in here with our Geek Cred. Ken, what did you have specifically, or that we were going into for Geek Cred here, since we started off with emails?
Sure. So I've been reading, and again, I actually saw a thread about this on the Audible subreddit today, actually, and it's something that's been crossing my mind a fair bit frequently, which is people complaining of, but does it really count as reading if it's audible, and people getting called out and stuff. And I think somebody summarized it very, very well. They said, no, that's just people gatekeeping because they want to make you feel bad. You're still consuming the content, whether it's in the format of being viewed or listened to, is still valuable. You don't look down on Braille readers because they listen or they read via via feeling instead of reading, do you? So why would you look down on people who prefer to listen over preferring to read?
That's a good way to put it. That's a really
point.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I admittedly had some of that same struggle at first, but no, I agree that if you're reading, you're reading. If you're consuming a regular book, in the sense of all of the material that's in the book, then yes, you are reading. And it's weird to me that people try to say like, no, you can't because one thing or another.
Yeah, it's just absolute gatekeeping, isn't it? And it's just
it
rude.
is. It is. So bad. So that's interesting to hear, but no.
Yeah. I've been reading. I've been reading a few things. In particular, I've been continuing listening to The Player of Games by Ian M. Banks, the Scottish science fiction author.
Okay.
So I've always thoroughly enjoyed his work, and I read this when I was younger. But I've now finished for the second time reading The Player of Games, after finishing Consider Fleabus, the first in the series. So I should be going to the third next. However, I'm not quite there yet, as I don't have any credits left for this month. I'm just going to have to hold on and wait. But instead, I've got a couple other things in my library I've been meaning to get to, so I've been doing that instead. And in particular, that's the novel The Necronomicon. So it's just a series of short stories by H.P. Lovecraft.
Okay.
Which I've never read before, and that's it's something that I've always wanted to. H.P. Lovecraft is one of Kitten's favorite authors. I have to admit, I was warned beforehand about the racism that's in these books because they were written a period long time since past.
Okay.
And it still kind of caught me. I was kind of surprised and shocked by it at times. I won't say the word on air for obvious reasons. However, I just read one of the short stories I just listened to had the main character had a cat who had just the N-word, as its name. And so the author was repeatedly saying this word again and again. Yep. And every time I heard it, it was like a physical blow of like surprise, like, oh my God. Like, when you hear that word, it's just like a shock.
Yeah. Well, it's also weird because it's one of those things that that's an interesting one, right? Especially because when you hear it in pop things like music, it often flows in such a way that you almost don't even notice that it was used. Because it's just part of a lyric, this, that, or it becomes so... The intent behind it is not malicious. And so it also comes off as being just kind of like you almost forget that that's the word that's being used. At least for me. Because
That's fair.
there are times when I went back after trying to analyze my thoughts on some of the labels that people do that are meant to be derogatory. And I was specifically with that one trying to feel my opinions on it. Because I had a situation back when I first started with my Game Fest group, where they actually had a phase they were using it quite often as a term of endearment, even though of that group there were all of two of us that really qualified. And it was all because at first I'd hear it and I'd be like, what the heck's this about? But then I found the origin of why they were all doing it. They were actually mimicking a Japanese sitcom kind of show that had come out that they'd all run across that admittedly was very entertaining because it was essentially showing how another culture did not understand how things were used, and they were
Okay.
using it as a term
So it
of
was
endearment.
ironic, really.
In a lot of ways, but when you heard it out of context and weren't sure, I had to sit there and assess for a bit. And I knew it wasn't malicious, but I was kind of like, but at the same time, why is this what you guys are choosing to do? Finally, I saw it and I understood, and I still had a bit of a struggle with it where I was like, and eventually it died off and it wasn't a deal anymore. But it's interesting because I will say that a lot of cases, whatever's being said has some level of whatever the intent behind it is what really becomes a driving factor for how acceptable it is.
I suppose it's different per person and different per person's personal experience and per person's race as well, right? That obviously has an impact, and their cultural upbringing, everything. I mean, for me personally, I've just always known that it's always been a horrendous word that should never be used under any context. And I've never been comfortable with it in rap either. I've never understood why, as a culture, we find that acceptable, because I just see it as kind of a derogatory term, and I don't think that. I don't think making money off it is a good thing either. I understand that there's a whole taking it back thing, and then there's the whole changing the meaning of it thing and all this. But I feel like the only way that as a society we can ever get over this word is, for now, we don't use it, and eventually it becomes a word that's unknown, and then eventually it might be picked up by historians who see it as a ridiculous word. And they're like, oh, I can't believe people were actually mortally offended by this back in the day, but now it's just a word to reference a historical thing.
Well, and
that's what I hope it will one day be.
It's weird too, because this is one of those situations, and I've talked about to some level in the past as well when it comes to cosplay and concerns over people changing skin tone to match a character and stuff like that, how one of the problems is this is primarily, in the way that it has taken or occurred, an American or North American, basically a United States issue. And I say that even though, admittedly, United States culture and pop and media and things like that have extended to the world now. But it's something that the origin and the meaning and the significance behind how some of the terminology is made is unique to here. Others have adopted, but it's unique and it started here. I say that I watched a comedy program from Trevor Noah recently, his stand-up that he did. He's the host of, what is it, Late Night or such with Trevor Noah. He took over
watches him every
for
day,
Jon Stewart. Yeah. I find him entertaining, but one of the things he talked about, because he's from South Africa, is that him coming over, that word served no significance to him. Because where he grew up, that wasn't even a word that was used. And in fact, in South Africa, that word, or how it's said, is closer to a different term from what language he's comfortable with. And so it was actually complimentary. But at the same time, in South Africa, they have an equally horrible word, essentially, or something that has the same kind of meaning, but it's a completely different term. And so in a way, he came over, and part of his comedy act is he actually said a bunch of things in his native tongue that everyone was like, okay, I don't get it. That doesn't mean anything to me. And he was like, exactly. Because everything I just said would have been super offensive where I was from.
Yeah.
But it means nothing to you.
That's funny, isn't it?
And so he was making that same kind of correlation to say,
well, it makes sense.
In
the end, words have no power. It's the meaning attributed to them, right?
Exactly.
That's an absolute truth.
And that's partly why, for me, even when I hear it in music, a lot of times when you hear it in rap music, hip-hop, stuff like that, it's often done in a way that's a little more, it's not as derogatory, because they're using it, and I don't even use the term like taking it back or something like that, but they use it as a common thing in their regular language, almost like saying, hey, bro, in often cases. And so when I hear it in a way that is, you hear the intent behind it, it's nothing. And so it's weird. It's weird in that sense. But it is, like you said, it's the intent and it's what impact that word has on you that makes the difference. I'm not excusing it. But no. I've just noticed that's how I've interacted.
I think the intent does matter. I mean, surely if someone's being malicious, that should be considered as one of the heinous thing, right? They're trying to intentionally be insightfully hating, I suppose. But I don't think that's all that matters. If you're completely innocent, like, okay, if you're a white dude or a white chick or even like a Chinese person or somebody who's just ignorant or thinks it's completely acceptable to use that word and say is walking around on a sitting on the bus full of miscellaneous people in the city and singing their favorite song to themselves, bopping away, and that word is a word that's used repeatedly in it. I would think that's a horrible thing to do, even though it's completely innocent. The person's just singing a song they enjoy. Most people would probably agree that it's okay for rappers to say that word as well. But as soon as it's used by somebody else, it can also be bad, and that's also partly why I still don't think it should be used at all. Like I said,
and understandably,
it's
it's an interesting conundrum to kind of deal with. But yeah, I don't have an answer. I just know that in some cases I feel mixed in the sense that there are times I totally accept and it doesn't bother me, and there's other times where I'm like, hey, that's messed up. And it has always felt to me like it has been the intent behind or what I've taken from how the person was using it that's mattered. So I don't have a great way of saying it.
My last piece on it, I had this one ex-flatmate who, oh god, he was such an asshole, and for many other reasons than this, but this also helped. He would use this word in an academic sense, but frequently, as if he would say he'd want to discuss how it's interesting, and he want to talk about, because he was a psychology major, he want to talk about the psychological impact, but he saw himself as this outsider to the world who was merely observing and watching, and therefore when he said this word, it's acceptable because he was doing it in an academic way, and that makes it okay. And I was like, dude, you say that word like 10 times a day, and you're clearly doing it just to be like, look at me, I get to say this word because I'm not afraid of saying this word, and you just think you're cool, right? And that is not how that word should be used. You're basically using other people's strife to try and make you look cool. And that's not acceptable, regardless of whether you think it's an academic thing or not. Because truthfully, if it's an academic thing, go write a paper on it and don't walk around talking about it in public. Because that's what we do with academic stuff, right? And if that's really where you want to go with it, that's fine. And I think it should be studied, maybe in like English language studies.
And there are ways to present it. Like you said, it doesn't necessarily need to be a constant, everyday conversation.
No.
As such. And I don't know, maybe some people feel that it does because then it goes again to whatever agenda they're after, I guess. But in my opinion, it's not something that everybody wants to or needs to go through every day, right? I don't know. Regardless, I mean, okay, cool. So
yeah. Sorry, anyway, that was
no.
So I would reading this book, and the main character, one of the main character in one of the short stories, has a cat who's named the N word with the word man at the end, and it just shocks me every time I hear it. And I know fine well that H.P. Lovecraft was a kind of a horrific man, and I remember reading somewhere that the racists of the time would look at him abhorrently for how racist he was. Right, that's how much of a racist asshole this author apparently was. However, he did define a genre, and like many people in human history who've done horrific and said horrific and have horrific views, they can still produce value, and I do believe that. I don't think this person. Well, he's not receiving royalties anymore. For one, he's long dead. And two, we're not glorifying that. I think it's important that we learn from the things of the past like this. We don't just bury them. I think we learn why it was bad, but we can still enjoy the other aspects. We're not going to throw away great scientific advancements because they were done by sexists or racists. We're not about to throw away literary works for the same reasons, nor should we do musical works, nor should we do film, etc., right? We should absolutely still look down on them for this, but we should learn from it and still enjoy it for what it was outside of these racial things. People still watch Mary Poppins, even though it was horrifically sexist, right? If you watch it now. But we still enjoy it knowing
there's also a piece that I wish people would not suffer revisionist history and accept that things are still valuable even if they don't meet what we have progressed to today. Because it's just like the whole nonsense going off about Baby It's Cold Outside as a song. And how absolutely ridiculous it is that people are throwing hate at it now. Without refusing to see the truth of how it was intended and what the reality of it was back then. And so it's things like that I'm just like, you guys are garbage.
I have some mixed views on that one because it wasn't that one that made me flinch. It was after I read an article by somebody who was saying that they felt it was a homosexual person saying they were very uncomfortable listening to the phrase in Fairy Tale of New York, where it says, "You scumbag, you maggot, you cheap lousy."
You
can rhyme, right? Yeah. When that word is said, they said that they flinch and feel very uncomfortable, and they dislike that in many instances we'll look down on that word being used in any daily like phrasing or sentences or writing, and yet we're okay with it existing in this popular song that children sing. Why is that? And at first I was like, oh, it's just a traditional thing. We've always done it. It's not a big deal. And then I sort of thought, like, what am I saying? People would have said the same thing about so much racist stuff in the past, but it doesn't mean anything. There's no malicious intent. I mean, the truth is, it doesn't really matter because the people who hear that, who are offended by that word, can be offended. I don't really care normally about people being offended, but at the same time, it's Christmas. I don't want people to go around feeling like crap.
Okay, but here's the thing. Everyone has a right to be offended, but guess what? You don't have the right to make other people change how they do their lives necessarily.
Absolutely.
Because there's a limit to it, right? There's a point where I understand what you're saying.
It's fine to play that song in your own home, etc. However, I have started to now think perhaps it shouldn't be played in stores and schools and stuff. Perhaps we shouldn't share that there. Just like how we don't share, I don't know, racist, we don't sell racist dolls and stuff anymore like we used to, right? As a society. We look
Japan
down on
does,
that.
But...
Well, Japan. But like that's Japan. But you can do whatever you want in your own home. You can
absolutely
be racist in your own home and stuff. But,
and I absolutely understand what you're saying, but I do have concerns with how some people attack what is tradition. I mean, there's points when it is appropriate to modernize, to adjust, to be current with what times have progressed to. Absolutely. And I'm not necessarily defending that song specifically in that sense, but I always throw caution to how we react to certain situations, because we have run into a time frame where sometimes it feels like anyone can claim offense to something and anyone can take offense to something, and the societal accepted response is everybody has to support that without taking the time to really evaluate what's going on, because we're so quick to try to save victims from the world, essentially, or something to that effect, that we don't sometimes look to say, but do we really need to? Is this a case that we need society to get involved with to make a change? Or is this something that person or that individual chose to be offended by? And yes, I will tell you, you choose how you react to any situation. Sometimes it's appropriate. Sometimes it may be too much. And therefore, they just will have to learn to, and something I've said society has lost a bit of, brush their shoulder off, deal with something that may offend them that exists in life, but not react to it in such a negative way. Because, I'm offended when I see the fake balls that hang off the back of people's pickup trucks, because I think it's one of the most crass and gross things I've ever seen. But does it mean I attack those people? Does it mean that I think they should be banned? No, I just think that person, I judge them, has bad taste and is sharing it with the world. And so I put that in the sense of not forgiving anything that is truly horrendous, but to caution people with jumping on a bandwagon essentially effect, or a group mentality effect. And I'm not blaming you of this, Ken, but just saying in general,
no, that's fine.
A cautionary tale of just take a moment, step back, see what the real problem is, and see if it's something that society needs to take on, or if you can just say, that person sucks.
My viewpoint is more along the lines of we should discuss these things. I'm not saying it should be banned. I'm not saying it should be absolutely outlawed and people who do it should be slaughtered, right? I think it should be more along the lines of this word, perhaps it shouldn't be said by children. Perhaps we should consider that. Perhaps we should not use it on a daily context in a song that we think is a happy thing when it might actually be making people unhappy. Perhaps we should consider using other songs. Perhaps we should just discuss it and sit and talk about it like we're doing right now.
Okay, that's fair.
Right? I think that's absolutely fine. I mean, in the end, if it turns out that we think, most people, only like 2% of the population wants to get rid of it or whatever, then who cares? In fact, I saw a study, there was a poll, definitely not a study. There was a poll by one of the popular news sites here in the UK who said, do you think it should be banned? And I think it had 96% of people said it should not be banned. 4% said either it should be or unknown, right? So clearly most people are fine with it. But at the same time, if you said 30 years ago or even 50 years ago, should gay marriage be legalized, I bet you'd get similar stats, right? Most people would be against it.
Fair.
The times change. So, and I think maybe at some point in the future, times might change with this as well.
They may. It'll be interesting to see where we end up, and I won't guess onto where it's going to go because I have no idea. And I still see things that are changing in the world today that I would probably rather stay the same. And, maybe I'm just old now. But it's interesting to see how it's going.
I think we all feel that with some stuff.
Anyhow, as we're getting into the geek cred part of things, and you were talking about the book, is there anything else geek cred you want to talk about? Well, I say this because there are some things I actually want to make sure I bring up.
Sure. Yes. We haven't gone fairly political today, and it's mostly my fault. I do apologize. I want to talk about more things. Yes, I've been reading Necronomicon. It is quite enjoyable. There's some interesting stories, and it's actually very well written. And I haven't listened to a book that, admittedly, the sci-fi books are well written, but in a futuristic sense where there's a lot of interesting names and new concepts, and it's more about the actual story and the characters and the meat of the story. Sorry, the meat of the literature itself. That's been really interesting. Whereas this one is more about the actual eloquency behind the writing. The English language that's used is much more old school. And a couple of times I've actually had to sit and think, I recognize that word, or I know that word, but I don't know in this context. And I have to sort of work out what the author's saying when I don't quite get it. And it's been nice to actually feel challenged by a book, because most of the ones I read, I'm usually quite comfortable with the level. And I do feel a little bit challenged by this. Not a huge amount. It's not like I'm struggling to understand it. It's more just there are times where I'm like, oh, I didn't understand what that one sentence meant or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's nice. So I recommend it for anybody who's interested in particularly Lovecraftian stuff. You might have heard of the term Lovecraftian. Obviously comes from the author Lovecraft. Cthulhu, that type stuff, all from H.P. Lovecraft. He's the one that comes up with these type of monsters that are eldritch. That term as well, I believe that came from Lovecraft. Eldritch monsters.
Huh.
That's all Lovecraftian. So that whole concept of like the underwater octopus men that has influenced so much content in movies and music and games. Think of World of Warcraft, for God's sakes. The Cataclysm stuff, all the under the water monsters there, and the old gods entirely. All the old gods are very Lovecraftian, all based on that type of thing. Okay. So if you're looking for some literature to read that you feel like challenging yourself a little bit, I would recommend H.P. Lovecraft. Other than that, I've been playing a little bit of Factorio when I've had time, but honestly, I've not put that much time into it, so it's not really worth mentioning. And I'll be playing some Factorio after the show if anyone wants to join me on our server.
Nice.
Sir, what have you been up to?
All right. Well, first thing I want to bring up is little bits, although I haven't been playing nearly enough of it recently, but some WoW stuff. Essentially that I had finished playing through the previous holiday event with Thanksgiving things, and now getting into the Christmas season. And of course, I do not know the official wordage of what they do. And it's like the Father something or other that's an Ironforge. I'm going to go visit.
What's
stuff like that. But essentially the Christmas season, everybody knows. And I logged in real quick, did an update, and just kind of looked and said, I need to do those except the first quest, but I haven't got anywhere with it, so I need to do that. So that's the main thing I said. I hit level 60, so I'm now flying around on mounts, and a big thank you to Miss Copy for gifting me a nice purple cat that I am able to now fly around on, which is adorables. But yes, Winter
sweet.
Veil, that's what it is. Thank you all of those who actually play the game and know what's going on. As I am still just going for the lore.
I should have known that.
But good job. So that was that real quick. So other geek things. So I've been playing lots of League of Legends. So I found out that, and I was trying to ask a question of myself just recently, like, why do I still play so many ARAMs in League? But I do really enjoy it. I've had success and failures back and forth, and some that I truly didn't understand why I failed or what the team was doing, but just kind of things. But it's something that I still enjoy, even though I could be doing a ton of other games that I have on my list. I keep coming back to it as kind of a known experience that I'm going to spend anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes playing, and makes me happy. So I still play a lot of LoL for that, and you'll probably be easily able to find me on there. Other than that, though, I want to talk about some tech and things that I've been doing, especially for the show. So first thing, and what I've been hinting at, is these nice colorful buttons that I have in front of me right now for this. And admittedly, this is a thank you to the audience, and this is through your donations.
Absolutely.
That we picked up a Stream Deck, which is from Elgato. They make capture cards and some other things, but they also make two versions of the Stream Deck. The bigger one, which I have here, which is 15 buttons. And the other one, I think, has 5 or 6 buttons or something like that. They have a smaller one that's like $100. But essentially what they are is they have little screens behind each key, which is really nice about it. You could do this with any kind of device, but what's wonderful about the Elgato Stream Deck is you can program them through very simple software to the point where I have already got a ton of things scripted on it. I just have to figure out the audio side. So yes, drop-ins is a thing. Is I actually now have a button. Unfortunately, it won't work here, but I can just click it. It switches over screen, and from there I can just click essentially a button that would play an audio clip. And once I refigure out how to put it back through and control how the Elgato software pushes it, then I'll be able to get it back on the show. But I also have, it has some built-in features that are based on popular streaming things. And oh gosh, fine. Well, the problem is my screen isn't sharing like I'd like it to. Otherwise, I would have put that up and you would see it. But what I can do is I can share the link, or you can see it if you go to Amazon has it for sale, which is probably one of the easiest ways to look at it.
Although I would recommend, if you're going to share that link, perhaps VTWify it if you can.
I can't right now. I lost because nobody bought any of the stuff from our links. So I have to reassess for a streamer account. And so I just haven't done that yet because nobody was actually clicking to buy any of the stuff we were sharing. But in the meantime, it's a USB.
We rarely ever advertised that one, to be fair. That was our one.
I mean, I would, but because I think it's cool. I was throwing in the show notes links to everything that I was putting out there. But so this is going to be a big ugly link, but here you guys go. You can check it out on Amazon if you want to pick one up. But it's really cool because essentially it is just a copy and paste. There we go. It is a smart button, external button setup. And what's cool about it is it lets you actually map all the buttons with custom icons that you can either create yourself or pick from a list they have. It has scripting in the software that's really powerful so that you can build multiple chain scripts that you can do, or as well as you can just do simple run a program, run a set of key presses, things like that. There's a lot of ways you can interact with what you do for the scripting of it. What's cool is it's a smart device, so if I click on different applications that I assign to different profiles, it will bring up those hotkeys, essentially, or those ones, depending on whatever program I click on or is active on my screen. So I've started setting up things for the show itself, and so in this I have each of the scenes in OBS that I can just click to and it switches over. So that's what I use today to go from the pre-show to our intro to the scene that we have where you see us. As well as I have a button set up to be able to share my screen so I could click there instead of me having to reach into the software and doing it separately. So thus ways to basically significantly free up some of the time frame and how easy it is to find and do certain actions just to keep things very streamlined. What's also really cool about it is because it's open to be able to be done anything. I was trying to set up things for my editing software for photography and things like that to kind of streamline some of the common buttons I would hit. Instead of me, because I'm terrible, remembering all the shortcut keys, I can actually put those shortcut keys directly as button presses and put icons behind it. And the words, you can also type in and do stuff like that. So super cool with that, but it's really optimized for streaming, and they have a ton of things that are built into it for streaming. So I've been super excited for it. I've been playing with it since it came in, and within the first day, it actually kept me up late the first night because I was like, I have to try it, get it installed, and it's just been super slick. So for someone who's actually doing streaming constantly and you like to do a lot of those interactions with your audience and do other things, like there's even a button on here that shows me how many people are listening or watching us on Twitch right now that updates in real time. So I can see it there. And it also lets you adjust things like what chats you're working and stuff. I tweeted out the show today through some of the hotkey buttons I have in there. I can turn on and off the stream, and then I can turn on recording. There's so many options you can do in it that you can set, and you can set up a bunch of different profiles so you can essentially go down a rabbit hole of as many different configurations as you want, and especially because it's set up per program. No matter which one I'm on, I could be watching like VLC streaming or something. I could have all the push buttons set up here, so as soon as I click on it, I'm now controlling my media through it. Play, pause, forward, back, all those kind of features. And you can do it either through hotkeys based on shortcuts or anything that's built into the software. It's super cool.
Hando says he might get one for his job because it looks cool.
It's neat.
It's
very straightforward. Works on Mac and on PC. It's great. Right now it's $136 Prime on the US, and the 6-key version is $80. I know of offices that actually have multiples of these set up because you can plug in multiple and name each one separately. So you can have whole slews of these depending on what you need to do for automation. Basically building your own customized control system, if you will, for buttons. And yes, you could do all this stuff on a keyboard, but then you're having to remember what each key press or shortcut is. Here, I can just read it and see what's on the screen and do it and just touch it. And so very efficient, very quick, something that's been a lot of fun that I'm super excited for. That's number one for technology and stuff I've been doing. Another thing that I've been doing that I've enjoyed is I have another device that I had purchased over the Black Friday sales and such like that for deals that happen. I got a Spider Pro 5. essentially, and I'm going to hold it up so you read it. I have it on a stand right now because I just used it. For people who don't know, this is from Data Color. Spider Pro, or the spiders, are essentially light meter type color meter devices. I forget what they're officially, spectrometers to a degree. But they're designed with the software to allow you to do calibration of monitors. And so I am now granted not using the Spider software that I got with it, but instead using DisplayCal, which is an open source version that's gotten a lot of good reviews. I have calibrated my main 4K monitor and my other one that I have sitting here so that they are at least consistent with color value. And the reason I've done that is because of photo editing. And so for me to have the proper consistent output so that I can generally think that what I see on my screen and what is basically what you should see on your screen. Granted, that is very depending on what everyone's screen is set for.
So I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that I imagine other people would want to ask in this scenario.
Cool.
But surely the monitor by default is set up to work fine for photography and stuff. Why would it make any difference? Surely it's already set to what is real or whatever.
Well, so in most cases, each monitor, depending on the quality of the monitor and what it has limitations to how much color gamut that it is able to actually produce. Cheaper monitors tend to not be as accurate or have as wide of a color range that they're able to accomplish. And so they often are tuned for what would be considered pleasing to most consumers when they first buy it. And in many cases, that often means they are too bright. Oddly, one of the things less so than color is often brightness. That to make things aesthetically pleasing to people, they turn things up a little bit so you think that you have this great new modern monitor that's able to produce so much, blast all the information at your eyeballs. But in reality, a lot of those will be tuned a certain way that are either a little too warm, a little too cool, just in little cases. And the challenge is what you're really trying to accomplish with calibration is to make it so that you can consistently convey what you're seeing to what your camera caught. Because every device that does anything with image manipulation, be it capturing or displaying, has its own settings. And they are not universal to the world, right? There are standards out there that everyone's supposed to meet, but not everything is done that way. And a lot of companies don't even take the time to calibrate their systems for it properly. They go a base out of the factory calibration, but the other piece of that is your calibration is determined based on your lighting situation where you exist and what you're doing in your space. So my lighting based on the lights in my room and the color and stuff like that will adjust how I see the images on the screen. And so it takes all of those things into account when you do a calibration. And I should be able to take that calibration and put it out to a printer and things like that and get a more consistent result of what images would look like when they're actually produced.
All right. And is this something that everybody needs to do?
No. I would say the majority of people in their everyday lives would never need to calibrate their system. I would say if you are a content creator, and especially if you're creating in the sense of anything that people are going to routinely see, you're going to want to do some basic level of calibration, because the challenge may be that if you don't know that your monitor that you're seeing on may be set a little too warm or something like that, and therefore you've gotten used to it, you see it in such a way that you adjust what you're looking at to make it look correct to your eyes as though you would see it in nature. What you're actually producing is an image that is now way too cool. And so when anyone else sees it that does have a properly tuned monitor or something that's more accurate, are going to see blue tones and such like that and think that you've done something wrong, which you have in that sense. Because there's a challenge that everyone's going to run into, but at least you're going to be consistent with what most people are doing as creators, is anyone's system can be off that's consuming it, and you can't fix that. But what you can do is make sure yours is as accurate as it can be so that anyone who does have good equipment will see it properly. And assuming that the majority of people, whether they're a little warm, a little cool, is just a base example, you're going to be closer to accurate if yours is in the middle, is what it should be. And then it's on them for their devices.
So do you need to only do this once, or is this something you need to calibrate frequently? Is it better to rent one of these devices or buy one?
So it depends on what you're doing again. If you're a creator, I would say it's probably worth buying because they're not that expensive. Just make sure you get one that's an actual spectrometer or has a little bit better things for it, where you can get for about $100, a little bit more. If you're creating enough content, that's just an investment that you have that you can keep on forever. That they recommend you probably do this at least once a month, but it also depends how often and what all you're creating and what environment you're in. Because I've seen recommendations that are as much as once a week. For me, I think in my overall thing, since my monitors I hadn't ever calibrated, even though the main 4K I have is a medical grade one that is generally calibrated by default, even then it came up being a little too bright and some other feature that it adjusted for when it did calibrate. And so I will probably do it on occasion when I remember to. If I know I'm about to start a major photography project, I may make sure I do it before that, just so I can ensure that my edits are more accurate. But that's my opinion. And
So I can actually add to this slightly.
okay.
When I first started editing photos and stuff, one of the first things I noticed, I thought all my photos looked great, and I edited them and they looked good. I'd upload them and I'd be happy. I'd see them on the website that I upload them to, and I'd be happy. And then I'd go to a friend's computer or whatever and show them my photos on a website, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, that looks horrible." It, like, all the colors would be off. I'd think I'd have this lovely, nice, warm glow, and it'd turn out to be like look kind of blue and or sickly. I'd find that I'd add a slight warmth to people's like faces to make them look like, I don't know, just
More
slightly
alive.
tanned or
It
whatever.
brings a little bit of sunlight onto their skin.
And then suddenly they just look like
Corpses.
unnatural zombies.
Yep.
Suddenly they look blue. And it looks horrifically edited. So that was my first foray into this, and I realized there was a cheap monitor that I had that was very poorly calibrated, and I first discovered this concept. The other time that I've discovered this again was recently in university. I have a dual monitor setup, but the two monitors are completely different eras and different quality.
Oh,
they're
gosh,
both
that hurts.
1920 by 1080 pixels, but the actual quality of the material used to make the screen is entirely different. And seeing the difference between them two was insane. Absolutely crazy. So I would see and I didn't know how to edit my photos. I actually stopped editing my photos at uni because I hated when I'd move it from one screen to the other,
Yep.
and it looked completely different.
Yep.
And I don't know which one was more accurate to other screens.
And
So I found myself trying to make an average or something, and then I realized that's ridiculous. And
Yep.
then, yeah.
Have you ever done any calibration in that way?
No, I've never had a good enough monitor to warrant it yet,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Well, in mine,
But I would love to rent one and have it at least done once. That would
well,
kind of be
and
my
if you can
go-to.
find anyone that has one, because honestly, if you have any artistic things at school, you may find that the school actually has them. And the nice thing is, a lot of times, what costs more than anything is the software license behind it. And so, like with the from Dataco, you're really buying the different versions of their software versus the hardware that you are actually running, because the hardware you can get with just the regular Spider versus the Pro. I just happened that the sale was such that the Pro was as cheap as the regular, so I might as well get it just to have that same license. But using DisplayCal, it is such a well supported platform as an open source project that I trust what it's done significantly. And there's a bunch of discussion about it out there, so you can research all the stuff about how it works. But I would say because you can get that software free, you could actually just get hold of the hardware, get the software because your license doesn't run out on it, and just create profiles on any device you want, because it's maintained by the OS and by the software that's running as you load up that applies the calibration adjustments to whatever's being displayed. And so you can keep that running versus having to have a different license for every device that you're running or every monitor.
That makes
So
sense.
that's how I'm running it, because I'll eventually go through my whole house and calibrate anything connected to a computer to make sure it's accurate.
That's cool, dude.
Yeah,
That's
so
really
that's
cool.
one of my thoughts. And I had the same issue you did, where I was going between platforms and running into that, where I was having the challenge of I would go just my own monitors, right, and do the same thing where one I'd be displaying and I'd bring up a reference image or another picture on the other monitor, and it would look completely different, and it was just freaking me out. And I knew what was happening, but the same challenge you had is I didn't know which was right. And so I was just suffering for it. So now I feel much better about my edits now that I've done this bit of manipulation and calibration. So that's something else I recommend for others that I've done. All right. Beyond that, my last geek project I did, is as I'm trying to prepare for some other projects I'm going to have happening, is I finally started assembling and did my first project on a Arduino board kit that I've had in my possession for quite some time.
Cool.
And so this little kit, and I forget who made it officially, but it came with a little plexiglass back that you can attach both the Arduino itself to and a breadboard, essentially, to the side, tester board, so that you can just use jumpers to kind of go across and move whatever you did. And I honestly have just done the very first project in the book, and where they suggest you just download the code and run it, but I decided to actually type it up so I have that feel of typing it in, make sure I'm understanding the syntax and everything. Since I haven't done anything computer science for so long. But all this one does, and I have it just powered through a little USB that I'll plug in here, as it kicks on the board, all it does is sequence a LED light on and off every second. That's all it does, right? But it's the base
Good start.
coding and understanding that lets me know how to put it on there, how to actually make sure I'm addressing each jumper appropriately. And I actually found out that I'd done it wrong, where I'd turned the power wires backwards, so of course it wasn't working with the 5-volt and the ground. So now I've got that sorted and figured out and such like that. So I'm excited because I'm going to continue to go through as I can all the future projects on it. What did I do? I must have, the power kicked off on it. And so this is step one, as I have many goals for lighting projects. And actually, I'm going to try to translate this too, because I know it's going to be different from Arduino, and I don't know all the differences, to my future goal is to be making most of my projects out of Raspberry Pi Zeros. And you see the difference in the size of board between them. Raspberry Pi Zero is about half the width of the motherboard. But I'm going to have to put on different headers and stuff to it to be able to get to work and it's powered through micro USB and has another USB connection to it. It has a lot of built-on I/O, and I can get this for essentially $5 a piece, versus where a lot of these Arduinos are somewhere around $30. And so my goal is to learn on this kit and go through all the kit exercises it has, and then extend that knowledge to the ideas I have for how I'm going to essentially wire up some of my light projects I'm going to be using with the Raspberry Pi. So we'll see. But that's something else I finally got off my butt and started doing.
Well done.
That is pretty much what my geek's been. Challenge has been that I also had news I wanted to bring up. I think, let's see, where did I want to focus? Like I said, I have a bunch of stuff on net neutrality. The biggest one saying that they're in their final votes again of trying to kill it all. I don't know if it's already passed now or not, but essentially the FCC here in the United States continues to be dirtbags because of Ajit Pai, who's the lead dirtbag over there.
Ultimate dirtbag, yep.
Yeah, and lies completely to public, has been fighting for Freedom of Information Acts consistently, and avoiding putting out the truth that we've all seen in researchers showing that Russia basically helped hack the things about support versus failure of net neutrality in support of getting rid of the net neutrality laws that were on the books. So Russia had a hand in that in the U.S. politics as well. And a bunch of fake accounts were done, and a lot of them came from within the FCC and within telecoms. So there's a bunch of things that show that consumers overwhelmingly said they want net neutrality, and the FCC, which is supposed to be a public entity and support the people, said, no, we don't care, much like this administration's doing, and instead has chosen to ignore every fact about what people want and just institute what their, there's no proof to it, but essentially Ajit came from being a telecom lobbyist, but where his true loyalties lie, which is that with who paid his paycheck back in the day. Beyond that, the FCC or the FBI is now investigating these net neutrality comments, so we'll see what comes out of that. And Ajit Pai just got his second, quote, Courage Award of the Year for standing up to diversity and being labeled as, hey there, Mighty Stoner, it has been some time. Good to see you joining us.
Oh, wow.
But yes, saying that he is somehow courageous in how he screws over the American populace and through that the world. So I have feels about that and some. But without bringing up all the specifics of those articles, I will include those in show notes and people are welcome to read them. I did want to get into something timely, which is that Kingdom Hearts 3 was stolen.
What?
That it was revealed just now that some copies of Square Enix's forthcoming action RPG Kingdom Hearts 3 has unfortunately been leaked online. It appears that approximately 30 copies were stolen, with several sold to others, and the thief even posted the game's introduction sequence and first town on his personal Facebook page before it was pulled. This has led to some spoilers appearing online, which the game director Tetsuya Nomura addressed in an official statement. It says that based on the statement, it appears Square Enix is aware of how this leak happened and is working to correct the situation. And fans will also likely be happy to hear that the game's secret movie and epilogue cannot be leaked because it's going to be added to the game at a later date, presumably at launch. But it's still best to be safe on the social media and online for those who wish to avoid spoilers altogether. Furthermore, Nomura seemed encouraged by the fact that fans have been issuing warnings to others about spoilers. It seems as if many by now would be in the know about the situation. It is good for the company or community as a whole, as several fans would be disheartened by spoilers just a month away from release.
That's sweet.
And so it's an interesting story both sides, because one of the comments I had seen in other articles about this said that, go figure, they never released any kind of demo for this or beta or anything like that. And so people have no idea what's coming, and that might have led somewhat to people pushing so hard for whatever happened with it being stolen. But on the other side of that, it also shows that the community as a whole is pretty content to wait to experience the game. And I think it shows that there's a lot of support and that they believe it will be a great experience based on the previous ones. So they're not, most people I don't think are actually all that worried about not having a beta available or anything like that to see, that they're actually quite content waiting for what's going to come out officially.
I think most people would be. I mean, that's kind of the general standard for games that we don't have betas. That's a new thing. That's a new concept. That's not something we've ever expected.
Well, there's that discussion that back in the day we used to get free games that were the shareware versions back in the day and things like that. And so that you would get to play like the first level or something, and then you'd go back and buy the whole thing if you enjoyed it. That's how originally Quake, Doom, and all those came about. And I'm still supportive of that model because I remember there are a ton, and Quake and Doom are both examples. Quake for sure is one that I played the shareware so many times that I had it on pre-order and got it in the mail the day it was available. You know, I still have that original Quake disc with the whole in WAV format 9 Inch Nails track.
But a large part of that's just to get like people to know about it, right?
Yeah,
that's
it's
kind of one of the
part
main
of the
things.
advertising.
It's not.
And admittedly, Kingdom Hearts 3 probably doesn't need it. Probably doesn't need the hype. But there are times when I still think that model would be successful in these days. You know, release a level with all of the mechanics behind it, and then say there's more to come if you actually buy the game. Sometimes.
It does still exist.
It is, but less so compared to it usually being like the default way of that's how I used to come across games in most cases.
Sure, but I like Steam still does that, for example. You can still get some demos on Steam.
Some. It's kind of been a mixed thing where there's some demos and then it started to come back, but there was a time frame where nobody was producing demos. You know, I still remember the heyday of the PlayStation disc I would get from PlayStation Magazine or whatever it was each month that I actually looked forward to a ton because there were at least 4 or 5 new demos on every month's disc.
Yeah.
And I would play the crap out of those, and that's how I would decide a lot of times which new game I was going to buy. And so I still love that mechanism and miss some of it. But yeah, that's just a thought in general. But no, I brought up that because that was a very poignant, like, just happened thing. That if you are looking forward to this and afraid that it might be leaked, be careful that any information you hear right now about Kingdom Hearts may be about the storyline and may be spoilers. So if you don't want those, wait until next month on the 29th when it releases, and you can play it yourself. All right.
Yep. Wait till the D-bags will stop being D-bags.
Yeah, well, I say that's all I have. There's actually more I wanted to talk about, but we've run out of time because we had so much to say today about the world, life, and everything.
Yeah, so we are.
But if there's any last-minute things, Ken, you would like to let people know about or say, please do.
Save the world with your votes. Call your congressperson. If you're ever upset about anything in politics, always call your representative, be it congressman, MP, whatever. Vote with your head. Don't be lazy. It does make a difference. Every vote counts, and etc. etc. And recycle.
There you go. That is Ken's.
There you go.
Ken's advice for the world. So with that, Ken, if you'd be so kind as to roll us out for today. After the show, I will probably be in some WoW and in the chat for a little while before I have to go see Mortal Engines, because I'll be seeing that here in the next hour and a half or so, and so I'll be having to head out for that. But in the meantime, more than happy to talk about and do the whole after show gaming, guys, as we'll jump into the Discord channel. So let's see you there in the ShowX Discord. But Ken, yes, please lead us out.
You listen to ShowX on vtdubsproductions.com. Be sure to check us out all over the interwebs. You can find us on twitch.tv/VTWShowX. You can find us on Facebook.com. Search for ShowX there. On Twitter, you can find us as twitter.com/GoHex for me, twitter.com/DocDead for Wayne, and twitter.com/ShowX for the general show account as well. Be sure to follow us on Reddit. Join our little community there. That's our new forum. We want to start using that more. And by more, I mean at all. So go there, reddit.com/VTWShowX. And send us an email, showx@vtwproductions.com. And also subscribe to us on Patreon, minimum of $1 per month. That's nothing. That's $12 a year. That's a couple of coffees. You can afford to buy us a couple of coffees. Except we wouldn't actually use them for coffee. They only go towards the show and buying nifty new things which improve the sound quality today, for example. And also made Wayne very happy. So thank you all for listening in. It's very appreciated. And thank you for having me on the show, sir.
Awesome, Ken. Always good to have you. And apologies to Pusa in this case, because due to me turning everything over and getting optimized to use the Stream Deck, I do not have the drop-ins set up now in the other means that I had been using before, so I won't be able to play the goodbyes that we normally do, but I hope to have it all sorted by next week, and so we will figure this out. And just in general knowledge, let's see, next week puts us at, because Christmas is coming so soon, I'm trying to remember if I will be out of town next week or the following. I should still be able to manage to do show stuff through into the new year, until the new year part of it. Because beginning of next year, as we go into the holidays here, I will be traveling to go see my younger brother, and will probably not be able to do one of the shows there, if not maybe two of the shows. We'll see. But beyond that, I think otherwise I should be around and good for things. So, anyways.
I'll be here.
Yep, that's it, everybody. And yes, if nothing else, Ken will pick up my slack and make sure you guys still have fun and entertainment.
And until I'm in Vegas, then I won't be doing anything.
Yes, so similar things. So we'll figure it out. We'll let you know. But with that, thank you, everybody. We will catch you again next week. And as Copy has said, goodbye and see you next zombie. Thanks, everybody, and have a good